This is the Church of St. Michael's at Brierley Hill in the county of Staffordshire in England. The country of Zululand in southern Africa is 6,500 miles away. But there is a human link between this graveyard and that faraway sunburnt land. That link is Colour Sergeant Booth, winner of the Victoria Cross and belonging to the 1st Volunteer Battalion of the South Staffordshire Regiment. Sergeant Booth won his Victoria Cross, which incidentally is a very simple medal, made not of precious gold but of plain bronze, for bravery beyond the call of duty. And he won it in distant, hot Zululand. And his burial place is here at cold Brierley Hill. Generally, I have a deep affection for soldiers who have to risk lives and limbs to carry out the commands of their political leaders, whom, again generally, I am not so fond of. This is the story of one very real soldier, Colour Sergeant Booth, VC.
Sergeant Instructor Booth, VC, for 10 years drill instructor to the C Company of the 1st Battalion, South Staffordshire Regiment, is about to sever his connections with the volunteers. He will do so after a term of 35 years and 6 months' good and loyal service to his Queen and country. The fact that VC follows the name of anyone is, in itself, sufficient proof that the bearer is one of those whose career has been one of distinction. His retirement affords a fitting opportunity for recalling what his career has been, and a County Express representative sought an interview with him to obtain some facts for presentation to our readers. On presenting himself, the writer was received genially, but when the object of the visit was explained, it was evident that Sergeant Booth, who is among the most modest of men, did not wish to pose before the public. And it was only after considerable pressure that he consented to give us the particulars that we now reproduce for the benefit of our readers.
I was born in Carrington, a small village about 2 miles from Nottingham.
Sergeant Booth began to tell his heroic tale of how he longed to join the Marines, but was rejected for what was described as a palpitation of the heart. Undaunted, our noble hero ran off to Sheffield and enlisted with the 80th Regiment of Foot, the Staffordshire Regiment. At 18.5 years of age, Sergeant Booth was posted to Buttervant in the county of Cork, and it was there that he met his wife-to-be, Lucy. As she ruefully recounted to me in that kitchen,
"Heavens above, this is when me troubles started. Marry a soldier and you'll marry the whole regiment."
Booth then recounted to me the movements of his regiment from Ireland to Devon, where in September 1866 he married Lucy before returning to Ireland. In January 1872, along with his regiment, Booth embarked on the troop ship Orantes, bound for the China station. From that time until his arrival from the China Station in South Africa in 1877, Booth's life was one of diligent duty to his queen and country. By 1878, the regiment had landed in Cape Town to assist in the action against Cetshwayo, the Zulu chief. Accordingly, the regiment re-embarked from the Cape for the sea voyage to Natal, and so for 2 years Booth was to be parted from his wife and children.
By Christmas, the regiment was in the heart of Zululand, and it was there that we received the shattering news of Isandlwana. Couldn't believe it, but the officers got us together and told us that it was only too true. Cetshwayo, or Cetshwayo as we called him, and his Zulu impies were cockahoo. After all, they defeated the best we could send up against him. You can imagine how we all felt. Morale was pretty low after that. We then got the order to march to Fort Lüneburg at the Intombi River. And it was at this place, God help us, where some of my mates were massacred. And that for service there, I received the Victoria Cross.
Sergeant Booth's recollection of the vivid events on that terrible morning were, after so long a lapse of time, deeply impressed upon his mind, and I inclined to discover more of this valiant action from our hero.
We left Lüneburg on the morning of the 7th of March to escort a convoy of wagons, about some 24 in number. We arrived at the Intombi River at about 11 a.m. The river was very high and we couldn't cross it. Only on a raft that me and Mr. Lindorp and some of the men had constructed. The rain was coming down heavens hard, and it continued for 4 days. When it rains in that part of the world, even a smallish river like the Intombi soon becomes a raging flood. The men were right fed up, wet through, and anxious, you know. And many of us had a poor opinion of some of the I think it's better not to say any more on that subject, if you please, sir. Then, as if these difficulties weren't enough, no sooner had we ran up the wagons when the so-called friendly natives would drive off the oxen.
You say so-called friendly natives?
Well, you see, the Umbellini, the local chief, he was a bit of an outlaw. He'd change sides, he would, at the drop of an hat. The Captain Moriarty, that is, who commanded our detachment of 150 men, he was convinced that there were no hostiles in our territory. This, after Isandlwana, mind you, would they ever learn? The way he drew up the lager and, well, talk about inviting... The Major Tucker, that is, our CO, he'd come out of Fort Lüneburg the day before the attack, and he told Moriarty how worried he was to see such a poorly defended position at a time like that. So there we were, Lieutenant Harwood, myself with the commissariat wagon and about 35 men on one side of the river, whilst Moriarty kept the main body on the other side to form a triangle. He pitched his tent outside the defensive lines. Brave, aye, foolish more like. The gaps between the wagons weren't properly defended. Ditches weren't dug. Nor were any other measures taken, such as the posting of the pickets up in the hills. That night, I felt more than usually uneasy. The rain had stopped, thank the Lord. But it seemed to me that, well, I can't rightly explain to you now, young fella. Call it a soldier's instinct, if you like. I was right uneasy. When I went over the river to post the sentries, I tried to tell Moriarty that Umbellini was in the camp. One of the European drivers had seen him under one of the wagons eating corn. Cool as a cucumber he were. Would he listen? His parting shot was to tell me that it was true what the men said about me. That I'd kill my own brother if I had to. I just saluted him and left. Those were the last words to pass between us, sir.
Johnson! Johnson! Tucker? I thought it was Johnson over there. Never mind. Tell the captain to tell the boys to stand to.
Johnson! Johnson! Over here!
I looked out of the wagon, and I shall never forget the sight I saw. There were about 5,000 Zulus on the other side of the river.
Fire at will!
Sweet Jesus.
Well. Real pickle we're in now, Lucy Miguel.
To the river, lads.
Good try, lad.
Front rank! Fire! Retire! Rear rank! Fire!
Hold it steady, my lad.
Fire!
Well done, lad.
Fire! 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 Fire!
They're giving up, lads. I'll tell you, they're giving up.
We arrived at Lunenburg about 7:15, losing 9 who were on my side of the river and 41 on the other. All the remainder were assegaied in the river. We went on to play our part in the events leading up to Ulundi and the final defeat at Cachawayo. Oh, he was a tough nut, that crack, he were. Of course, when we left the Cape, we had to leave behind our comrades who'd fallen in that valley by the river. In peace now. On our return to Dublin the following year, I was ordered to report to Windsor Castle, where Her Majesty pinned the Victoria Cross on my chest herself. That was indeed a great honour for an humble soldier like me, sir. I don't know what scared me more, facing 5,000 Zulu warriors or coming face to face with a queen. Colour Sergeant Booth, Your Majesty. I was a bit, overcome.
We have heard so much about you, Mr. Booth. What a brave man you are. Don't you think that we are fortunate to have such brave men?
If you say so, Your Majesty. Yes, Your Majesty.
The news of the death of Colour Sergeant Anthony Booth, V.C., yesterday, Friday afternoon, at 19 William Street, Brierley Hill, will be received with great regret throughout the district, and also in many other quarters where the gallant soldier was known. The illness, which has cut short his life at the age of 54, was only of short duration. Sergeant Booth, V.C., came to Brierley Hill in 1888 as drill instructor to the C Company, and in April 1898 he retired on pension, the age clause rendering this step imperative. In all, he had then given 33.5 years good and loyal service to his Queen and country. Every inch a soldier, a splendid disciplinarian, firm yet courteous, he earned the highest admiration of all.
So let us remember Colour Sergeant Booth, winner of the Victoria Cross, and salute him in our minds, because he did his cruel job with courage and dignity.